Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Malloy, and my current event presentation this week is on an article called Global Teams That Work by Sadell Neely. It appeared in the Harvard Business Review in October 2015. In this article, Neely examines some of the challenges that global teams face when they bring together team members from various regions and various time zones and various cultures. She uses a term called social distance to measure the degree of emotional connection among these team members. Teams with short or small social distance means they work together very well. Teams with greater social distance means they come from very diverse backgrounds, they live in different parts of the world, they have different cultural norms, and so teams that have a larger social distance may tend to be more likely to fail if they cannot overcome some of these challenges. She uses 5 different areas to measure the social distance or emotional connections on these teams. And she uses an acronym called SPLIT, S-P-L-I-T, to identify those 5 different areas. The first is structure and the perception of power, which I found actually the most interesting because I think it applies to me and my team, and it's something I never really thought of before. But in this case, what she's saying is that if you have a diverse team working in different parts of the world, if most of the team members and the leader are located in a central location, then the remote people may feel that there's a central power area, for that team, or that the remote people feel less empowered to contribute to the team. That's something I had never thought of, and it's something I'm definitely have learned, and I'm going to try to be cognizant of that. I don't think of my remote people as less important. I try to go out of my way to make sure that they feel included, but I definitely will be more considerate of that and to make sure that they don't feel that they're less important or that there's a central power base here at the headquarters where I work. The second area, process and importance of empathy. And this basically relates to some of the emotional connections that you can build just through water cooler talk or through some of the small talk that happens before a meeting starts. That's very common when all the team members are located in one place, but if they're geographically diverse, it's harder to accomplish that. And she's got some recommendations for how to overcome that limitation. The third is language, and that, as it sounds, is really about if you've got people who speak different languages, how do you account for people who may have great ideas but are afraid or nervous about voicing them because English may not be their first language? That's assuming English is sort of the chosen language. It isn't always, but sometimes it is. And conversely, if you've got someone who is a native English speaker, they may tend to dominate meetings because their English, is very good. And so she also gives some suggestions on how to overcome that. I had a real-life situation where I had a developer on my team, and his English appeared to be good. He was very good at covering up the fact that his English was actually not very good. And it wasn't until he started failing on some tasks that we had given him that we realized it was because he wasn't fully understanding what was happening. And so we made an agreement with him. We said, look, I will, as the leader of the team, I will write down your assignments in great detail, because he could read English, but he just couldn't speak it very well, and he couldn't understand it very well. So I agreed to do that, and he agreed that anytime he didn't understand something because of a language barrier, he would come and ask me. He wouldn't try to hide this fact from us anymore, and it worked out great. He was a great developer, and he did a really good job on our team. The fourth area is called identify, and what this has to do with is the different cultural norms in business and the way people speak and the way they act and interact with each other. She gives an example about how someone in America, what they mean by saying, yes, I can do this. They mean, yeah, I can do it, and I'm confident I'm going to be successful. Whereas in India, they might say, yes, I can do this, but it just means they're going to try, and they don't have a high level of confidence that they would succeed. This is actually interesting. I run across this attribute or this area quite a bit when I travel. For example, when I was working in Latin America, meetings always started late, And one of the reasons they started late was that it was considered rude to leave a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, because you had another appointment or appointment after that. It was considered rude to leave a personal connection because you had to go somewhere else. And so I had meetings where, that would go a half hour, 45 minutes late, and because we weren't finished with our discussion, and I would go to my next meeting 45 minutes late, and I would just tell people that, I'm sorry, my previous meeting went over, and no one cared. It would have, again, been considered rude if I'd left early. So that was interesting. The fifth area is called Technology and Connection Challenge. And what she means by this area is how much of this communication is done instantly, and how much does this affect the team dynamics. I think her point here is that just because we can communicate instantaneously doesn't mean we always should or have to. I certainly see the benefit of video conferencing when I'm working with diverse teams. But the example she gives is that there was a Japanese person who was working on an American team, and all the meetings were set up in the time zone of the American team, which required the Japanese person to have to join meetings at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And she just said, sometimes you have to do that, but, could an email have done the same thing so that this Japanese person could have their evening offered to themselves? And I certainly come across this all the time. I've got customers in Europe, and I've got customers in Australia and New Zealand and Asia, and so I may have a call at 3 or 4 in the morning with Europe, then I have got to come in and do like my regular job in Eastern time zone with meetings and phone calls, and then I'll have a call in the evening with New Zealand or Australia. And it doesn't happen all the time because it's not sustainable to work like that, but it certainly happens. And so it's something that we as a company try to be cognizant of. We definitely love video conferencing, but we also try to respect everybody's time zones. So my questions for the discussion are, have you ever been in a geographically dispersed team where you had to deal with these kinds of issues? And if so, how did you overcome the social distance and build emotional connections on the team? If you haven't been on a geographically dispersed team at work, maybe you can just talk about a personal situation where you ran into an issue because of cultural differences and a misunderstanding, and just how you dealt with that and resolved that. The second question is, if you were to lead a geographically and culturally dispersed team, how would you manage the different cultural issues? So, for example, if you have team members who are from a very sort of business formal culture, let's say in Europe, right, and then you also have team members from an area where things are not so formal, how would you get those teams to kind of work together, respect each other's cultures, and so that you could build a successful team? And I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you.